onset, on behalf of V. Umashankarji, Secretary, Ministry of Road and Transport Highways, and Dr. Venkatesh Balasubramanian, the Head Center of Excellence for Road Safety, IIT Madras, I extend a very warm welcome to each and everyone present in this August gathering on the Strategic Alignment Meeting on Data-Driven Hyperlocal Interventions. Data, they say, is a sovereign wealth, and it is the deciding factors when it comes to decision-making, innovations, and also predictions. To move ahead, the brief about Professor Venkatesh Balasubramanian, who will be actually giving us the context of DDHI. Now I request Professor Dr. Venkatesh Balasubramanian to please develop the context.
I welcome everyone who could join us both in person and virtually through links in this meeting. 5 years ago, very similar to this, we started and kicked off a data collection system called IRAD, which later got rechristened as EDAR. So it's a pleasure that we get to collect, at that time, a lot of these states used to ask this question, because we contribute data in EDAR, would it imply, or IRAD, would it imply that we are going to be safe very soon, or roads are going to get safer? So I used to tell only one thing, that the number of accidents are going to be a little higher. Not because the data, because you're collecting IRAD, the data will be, but the amount of data that gets contributed in and other things will be bigger. And second thing that we used to say is, once we have a reasonable amount of data, we could have data-driven approaches that can be taken so that interventions could be done at a very hyper-local level. So with that perspective, we start. In 5 years, thanks to MORTH, which is the lead agency which had been driving it, and we have the additional secretary who used to be JS at that time, who used to help coordinate and get, in 1.5 years or 18 months, all the states joined the IRAD program. We need to make sure that the data quality improves. That's a separate session, that the data quality and how we improve that we could go. But what we can see, the bit of a red thing on the left, the data spots is the number of accidents that get reported in the India map. And, the numbers that are there, we get a huge 4.5% of the road network contribute to 60% of the fatality. Sounds good, but large part of it is because it is not all the highways that is accident happening. It is the place where the high-speed network meets the low-speed network, or the region in which the high-speed and low-speed networks meet, and so on and so forth. Go to the next slide, please. When we started our avenue into road safety, we created a systems approach. So framework on which, the transportation safety framework, sometime in 2017 or 16, a system dynamic model that we created. At a ground level, you have so much of fatalities. What is the sky that you are looking at is, how do we reduce the fatality, and how do we get to as less fatalities as possible. So that is the whole philosophical goal that we had. Intermediary goals that we wanted to have is the mindset change, the strategies that we develop, and so on. And in that, the first thing that we wanted to create is the trauma care program. The first trauma care program that we built was Tamil Nadu Accident and Emergency Care Initiative. Subsequently, in Rajasthan, it was called MAI, and Odisha and other states are also probably going to have a similar name for it. Good thing is the trauma commissioner of Tamil Nadu is here. Dr. Arun is here. So a designation of a trauma commissioner and so on. The next thing that we figured, when a good quality of data, we created IRAD. Of course, we also need to have better infrastructure related work and overall human related thing. So we use a business excellence model that was developed in a lab for mostly for operational excellence, the SOREL model and other innovation paradigms. Using that, we have gone to this part of this picture. Go to the next slide, please. Kind of setting the premise, there needs to be an understanding on what is this road accidents that is there. That's a word that we commonly use. Accident is typically called an act of God, which means that it's a black swan event. It is inadvertent, it is sudden. No matter what you did, it will happen. Right? The only way you can sort it out is continuously improve based on things that have happened, and whether it is engineering or administrative or behavioral nudges that we get. But most of what we get to see based on what we report as accident is volitional crashes. It is a volitional, meaning out of their own will. There is a deviation from a set standards, whether it is an IRC code or whether an operating procedure that is put, so on and so forth. It's a volitional deviation that happens. This requires a significant behavioral change. So one of the things jokingly I say is, when people compare to West, they had about 6 generations to come to the data accident crash levels that they have. We have just 2 generations away. So the concept of speed is not understood. People laughed at us, so we went and published in one of the highest rated psychology journals that Indians, people who study in IIT, BTechs with very high AAR, they too are very bad at guessing speed because it is a learning that is done from over a period, evolutionary learning. Next slide, please. So we had this data, we have this thought process, we want to go hack it. So what is it that we could do? Sometime in January 6th and 7th, we officially launched Sanjaya application. At that time, we figured there are things that needs to be done, and one of the things that our secretary sir had very clearly said, what we are talking about is a very hyper local interventions that we need to do. So we went about selecting 100 districts. I mean, we could randomly picked with a Monte Carlo simulation 100 districts. It still doesn't make a difference, because what we want to do is to get a lighthouse model where it is not focused on people, but it is focused on process. We want to build processes. So irrespective of who comes and sits, it gets done. So what we did use, of course, was a mathematical modeling. We picked 100 districts which were above the national median for the average districts per, average crashes or accidents per district. So 100 districts were picked from about 17 states that had about 28% of the high frequency accident zones or the black spots based on the 2022 to 2024 IRAD data. Of course, if IRAD data is populated well, you are penalizing me, could some of you say, but ignore that all. I'll take the words of previous Secretary Moth, Anurag sir, when I was in Bhopal with him. He said, Yaar, kyun now se ruk? I mean, why are you stopping at 9? We have 55. Why don't you also do all for the remaining 46 also that is there? So which for MP they would like to contribute, bring everybody under the same system and go on and go. Next slide, please. So this is largely what we would want to do. Our thought level that we are looking at is that in the data-driven hyperlocal interventions, you have factual as well as perceived data. So the road safety stack that we will talk about later, we have this IRAD, the FPS, the field perception, the trauma preparedness level. The field perception is a perception data. These are data we get. After that, a little bit of a dark zone where we go, conceptually ideate. The idea that we are looking at is a DRSC, the DRSC chairperson or the SPs are not epitome of all brilliance that is left in the planet. The idea is options need to come from bottom up so that the decision makers have options to select from, stabilize it, and then they can be very critical in planning de-risking options to come up with a good idea, that is the ideation cycle. And in terms of implementation cycle, a pilot implementation and review will have to be done. And I come from a manufacturing strategy background where we look at learning in clusters. Those are very green things that we need to do. So we have identified some clusters, but if there are other clusters, other things that we will decide in the course of the day, we could form. And then the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it is the hard, solid, on the ground, the dark brown earth should have an impact realistically happening. In IRAD, it was just collection of data. Now we need to have actual improvement. If we have not improved, then we need to go back and rechange the whole idea. So that is the product development cycle that we will be looking at. Next slide, please. So the way we would want to structure, I am a very strong believer whenever we are looking at an operational excellence, the first thing that we need to do is to get quick wins so that we have a grip over the methodologies and as well as confidence in the system. So we need to have some high impact, low cost solutions that can be very quickly done at a local level so that case studies could be built and then we can go about it. A frugal innovation is not stripping off things. It is about deeper understanding. For that, we need to work on 3 areas. One is emergency. The second is administration, largely overseen by enforcement. And third is infrastructure development, which is what is largely represented. We have IPS officers and other people from the states. We have the engineering chiefs, and we also have people who manage the health systems in the state. What is aspirational is to bring breakthroughs where we have the Indian model that is to be taken out. The executive, the SPs, the collectors and the district magistrates and the district collectors and the SPs, your key thing is to ensure that ABC is there, absolute budget certainty, but the idea is to keep the budgets very low. Review the intervention proposals across all stakeholders, which means that there needs to be a lot more proposals for you to reject than to approve anything that you can get. Plan for next phase of DDHI. And one more thing that we have deliberately not written, but what we will be pushing is something that Secretary Sir had pushed across was the Sadak Suraksha Mitra, where we are looking at local volunteers, engineering college students, just graduated. You don't need to pay them any money. These are all models which have been tried out very extensively in TN. They will be able to come up and give you some solutions. Sir had arranged for discussions with My Bharat, and they are very keen to get it in. Since it's not formalized, we have not put it in. But that's a role that the executive do. At operations level, bring that local talent and evaluate and identify suitable short-term, long-term interventions. Make sure that the plan is implemented and do the impact assessment. At IIT Madras, the CoERS, we will be, we give you the road safety stack. We will be happy to support you in using it, training it, and walking with you in the whole transformation process. Next slide. So this is a cluster. We'll go to it in the later part. The idea of the cluster is to facilitate horizontal learning. There is no right way to do, but there are many wrong ways to do. In the horizontal learning, we learn why others fail. That doesn't mean the idea is wrong. Maybe there were some challenges that were done. So that is the session today. We deliberately didn't have speakers. We have open sessions, which we will have one lead thought of somebody who had implemented a best practice, and then we will have discussions. We have at present thought about location by clusters, location by states. That's something that you guys will tell us today so that we can take it forward. With that, I thank you all for being there. That is to set the context, and welcome you all again. We will take it forward. Thank you to Secretary Sir. So a lot of thanks goes to Secretary Sir because the name data-driven hyperlocal intervention is his, and the thought process is his. Although the thought process of starting it is about 5-year-old, and we tried various variants. So Sir gave a functional structure to it to be implemented at a short notice. Thank you.